Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our live session. Today, we're going to discuss the simple future tense, the future continuous tense, the future perfect tense, and the future perfect continuous tense. Okay? All right then, let's get started. The simple future tense. We use the simple future tense to talk about actions or events that will happen in the future. We use the future tense with the modal verb will to make predictions, to talk about actions which we cannot control, or to refer to something which we decide to do at the time of speaking. Okay? So first of all, we use the simple future tense to talk about actions or events that will take place in the future, or that we want to take, certain things that we want will happen in the future, or that we want to happen in the future. Okay, and we also use the modal verb will to make predictions, things that we expect, that we predict will happen in the future. Examples, let's take a look at the examples. Example number one, Mr. Corleone will retire as the head of the department from the firm by the end of this year. This is a future action, something we are certain, something we expect to happen in the future. Mr. Corleone will retire as the head of the department from the firm by the end of this year. Number two, Aisha will certainly win the beauty contest this year. Aisha will certainly win the beauty contest this year. She is not only beautiful, but has a strong personality as well. Okay, Aisha will certainly win the beauty contest this year. She is not only beautiful, but has a strong personality as well. Here, this is a prediction, right? We are making a prediction that someone will certainly do something. This is not just a future action that is planned, but this is something that we predict that will happen. Okay? All right. Number three, tomorrow I will talk to you about the matter, Ruth. Tomorrow I will talk to you about the matter, Ruth. Intending to do something at the time of speaking. We also employ the simple future tense when we want to do something in the future and we intend to do it. We speak of our intention. And when we speak of our intention, we say so, we speak of it so in the simple future tense. So we say, tomorrow, I will talk to you about the matter, Ruth. Okay? All right. Remember, the simple future tense is formed in the following way. Subject, then you put either will or shall, and then you put the base form of the verb, of the action that you want to happen, or the action that you want to do, or the event, or whatever that you're expecting or that you want to do in the future, put it in its base form. Okay, such as, I will submit the report tomorrow. You shall tell only the truth in front of the jury. Are we clear? Hope so. Moving on to the next slide. Okay. Rule number two. We use the verb to be, or am, is, or are, plus going to, plus the base form of a verb for actions which we have already planned to do in the future and for events in the future. Examples. The Prime Minister is going to inaugurate the new bridge the coming Friday. The Prime Minister is going to inaugurate the new bridge the coming Friday, a planned event. Many people are going to lose their jobs if the economic stability does not return. An event likely to happen in the future. Now you see, we can use am going to, is going to, or are going to instead of will, right? Instead of will and shall. So this way, you can also put forward an idea, or put forward a plan that you expect to happen, that you expect will materialize in the future, right? Such as, look at example number one under rule number two. The Prime Minister is going to inaugurate the new bridge the coming Friday. Instead of saying this, you may also say, or you could also say, the Prime Minister will inaugurate, the new bridge the coming Friday, right? Both ways, it's fine. The Prime Minister is going to inaugurate, the Prime Minister will inaugurate, both are fine. Okay. Many people are going to lose their jobs if the economic stability does not return. Many people are going to lose their jobs if the economic stability does not return. Instead of are going to lose, you could also say many people will lose their jobs if the economic stability does not return. Both are fine, right? Both are in the simple future tense. Okay. Rule number 3, for actions which we had planned to do in the past but did not do so, we use was or were plus going to plus the base form of the verb. Now, we discussed this yesterday when we were discussing the past tense forms. But here, please take note that there are certain actions or certain plans that we wanted to take place, that we wanted to happen, but somehow those plans did not materialize. Somehow those actions were not followed, right? So when you want to talk of something like that, you can say so using the verbs, using the verb was or were plus going to plus the base form of the action plus the base form of the action verb or the state verb or the stative verb, such as Heidi. Take a look at the examples under rule number 3. Heidi was going to file a complaint against her colleague for rude behavior, but she changed her mind later. Heidi was going to file a complaint against her colleague for rude behavior, but she changed her mind later. A planned action that did not take place. Okay. We were planning to visit Venice this year, but had to cancel due to the pandemic. We were planning to visit Venice this year, but had to cancel due to the pandemic. So here, in both the sentences, you can see that, you planned something, but then later you could not materialize your plan. You could not make your plan happen, right? You could not actually turn it into a possibility. So, but however, you did plan to do something, right? So when you want to say something like that, you use the formula was or were, depending on the number of your subject, followed by going to, followed by the base form of the verb. Was going to file, were planning to visit, like that. Okay, Heidi was going to file a complaint against her colleague for rude behavior, but she changed her mind later. We were planning to visit Venice this year, but had to cancel due to the pandemic. Okay, I hope we are clear. Moving forward, moving on to the next slide. Okay, here we have the future continuous tense. And let's see, when do we speak or when do we use the future continuous tense? We use the future continuous tense to refer to actions or situations which will be going on at a certain time in the future, right? So up until now, so far, we've learned the simple future tense, right? The simple future tense, as in when to use the simple future tense, when you just clearly want to say something that you want to do in the future, right? For example, I will talk to you tomorrow. But when you want to be more specific about the future action, as in you just don't want to mention what you want to do, but at the same time, you also want to tell the time of it, right? The exact time when exactly you expect that particular action to take place, right? When you want to say something like that, then you employ the future continuous tense. And how do you do so? What do you say? You say they will be announcing the results. Take a look at the examples under rule number 1. They will be announcing the results of the elections just after 8 p.m. tonight. They will be announcing the results of the elections just after 8 p.m. tonight. I will be presenting the plan at the conference tonight. In both the sentences, in both the examples, you can see that you are mentioning the action that you want to, do, or an action that you want to take in the future. But not only that, you're also mentioning the time or exactly when you want that action to take place, right? Like in the first example you're saying that they will be announcing the results of elections just after 8 p.m. tonight. And in the second example, you're saying, I will be presenting the plan at the conference tonight. Okay? All right, moving forward to the second future continuous rule. We use the future continuous tense to refer to actions or situations in the future which have already been planned or which take place regularly. We use the future continuous tense to refer to actions or situations in the future which have already been planned or which take place regularly. Now, there are certain things that take place regularly, right? Like time and again. Okay, maybe some things, there are certain actions, certain events that take place annually, every year. So which tense do you choose to speak about those actions or those events? You can very well go with the future continuous tense, or you may want to refer to an action or a situation that has already been planned but has not yet taken place. So of course, a future action or a future event. So what do? You go with the future continuous tense. Let's take a look at the examples under rule number 2. The models will be displaying the winter collection at the International Fashion Show in Paris this week. The models will be displaying the winter collection at the International Fashion Show in Paris this week. Planned action for the future. Quite similar to rule number 1, where of course you are saying what you want to do, and not only that, but exactly when you want that to happen, right? Just like that, rule number 2 also is saying the same thing, outlining the same thing, but however, an addition in rule number 2 is you want to talk about events that take place regularly or events that take place every year. And to do that, you may just use the future continuous tense. So you say, like in example number 2, under rule number 2, my whole family will be hosting a medical campaign for the underprivileged in our hometown as we do every year, a regular event, right? My whole family will be hosting a medical campaign for the underprivileged in our hometown as we do every year. Now remember, the future continuous tense is formed in the following way. First, you put your subject, then you put will be or shall be, and then you put the base form of the verb and add ing with it, right? Add ing to it. Okay, such as the Ahmed will be leaving for the United States the coming Sunday. The Ahmed will be leaving for the United States the coming Sunday. The president will be addressing the nation tonight. The president will be addressing the nation tonight. Clear? I hope so. Okay. All right, moving forward to the next slide. The future perfect tense. Now we have the future perfect tense. We use the future perfect tense to refer to actions which will be completed by a definite time in the future. Okay, this is a little tricky, but however, completely understandable. Let's pay attention. We use the future perfect tense. We use the future perfect tense to refer to actions or situations which will be completed by a definite time in the future. Okay, so you see, you expect certain things to happen in the future by a specific time, within a certain time, right? Now, to talk about such actions or to talk about such situations, you can use, or we use, the future perfect tense. Examples. Example number 1, the mechanic will have serviced my car by Thursday. The mechanic will have serviced my car by Thursday. By the time the ambulance arrives, the patient will have lost a lot of blood. By the time the ambulance arrives, the patient will have lost a lot of blood. Now, in both these cases, you can see that you expect certain things to take place by a specific time, within a time frame, right? So in the first example, you're saying that the mechanic will have serviced your car by Thursday. So by the time it is Thursday, by the time Thursday is here, you expect your car to be completely serviced. So today, which is quite distant from Thursday, you say that the mechanic that you expect, or you say that the mechanic will have serviced my car by Thursday. So here, you're saying, or you're using the future perfect tense, right? To express your idea or to express your expectation. The mechanic will have serviced my car by Thursday. By the time the ambulance arrives, the patient will have lost a lot of blood. Now, this is a prediction again, but this prediction is being made in the future perfect tense because you're mentioning a time within which or by which, right, you expect something to happen. Before that time, you expect that to happen, right? So by the time the ambulance arrives, meaning before the ambulance is here, you think the patient will have lost a lot of blood. You predict the patient will have lost a lot of blood. Okay, moving on to rule number 2. We use the words already and just. We use the words already and just with the future perfect tense to refer to actions or situations which will be finished by an approximate time in the future, right? Here again, quite similar, just you're adding already and just to show, to emphasize more on the fact that certain things are definitely expected to take place, okay, before a specific time, such as, let's take a look at the examples under rule number 2. Example number 1, by next week, my wife will have already negotiated the price of the house with the estate agent. By next week, my wife will have already negotiated the price of the house with the estate agent, right? You could have just said that by next week, my wife will have negotiated the price of the house with the estate agent, but you add already to it, right, to increase your emphasis or to emphasize more on the expectation that you definitely expect, that you're certain that your wife will have negotiated the price of the house with the estate agent by next week. Okay? All right? Within next week. Okay. My younger sister, number 2, my younger sister will have just begun high school next August when I graduate. Now, when you say so, when you say just, you mean exactly the time, right? Exactly that very time, the time of which you are talking. My younger sister will have just begun high school next August when I graduate. Okay? You could have just said, my younger sister will have begun, but you add just to it to emphasize better. So you say, my younger sister will have just begun high school next August when I graduate. Now remember, the future tense, the future perfect tense is formed in the following way. Subject plus will have plus the past participle of a verb. Subject plus will have plus the past participle of a verb. More examples. I will have arrived in Singapore by this time tomorrow. I will have arrived in Singapore by this time tomorrow. Trudy and her husband will have been married for 25 years by next June. Trudy and her husband will have been married for 25 years by next June. Okay? Things you expect to happen before a specific time in the future, before a certain time in the future, or within a certain period of time in the future. To talk about such expectations or events that you expect to happen in the future, use or employ the future perfect tense. Okay, moving on. The future perfect continuous tense. Now, when to use the future perfect continuous tense? How do we put our sentences, or how do we employ the future perfect continuous tense in our sentences? When do we do so? We use the future perfect continuous tense when we want to refer to the duration of an action or an event at a definite time in the future. We use the future perfect continuous tense when we want to refer to the duration of an action or an event at a definite time in the future. We usually use adverbs of duration and time to state how long the action will last and when it will take place. Examples: my friend Julia will have been studying in London for 3 years by next December. Number 2, I will have been working for 5 years at my organization by next January. So when exactly do you employ the future perfect continuous tense? You do so when you want to talk about the duration of something that has been going on and you expect will continue to go on in the future, right? But now, only in this case, you bring in a time, right? By which or until which that action is expected to continue to happen, okay? Right? Such as example number 1, my friend Julia will have been studying in London for 3 years by next December. My friend Julia will have been studying in London for 3 years by next December. Here, when you say will have been studying, you mean your friend is already studying in London, but by next year, by next December, right, she will have completed studying for 3 years in London, right? So to express this entire action that is ongoing, and you expect this very action to keep on going, keep on going in the future, but now only this time you're mentioning a specific time in the future. Until when or by when, quite a duration will have been completed, or quite a time will have been spent by your friend or by the subject doing that action. Okay, so my friend Julia will have been studying in London for 3 years by next December. I will have been working. I'm already working. I will continue to work, but by next year or by next January, I mean that I will have completed 5 years of working at my organization. So you say this in the future perfect continuous tense, and you say, I will have been working for 5 years. I will have been working for 5 years at my organization by next January. Okay. Now remember, how do we construct sentences in the future perfect continuous tense? So how do we form the future perfect continuous tense? We do so by having the subject first, followed by will have or shall have, if need be, plus been, plus the base form of the verb, and add ing to that verb. Such as let's take a look at the examples under the heading. Remember, number 1, My friend's father will have been teaching at Dhaka University for 30 years by the end of this year. My friend's father will have been teaching at Dhaka University for 30 years by the end of this year. Harvey will have been practicing law for 15 years by November next year. Harvey will have been practicing law for 15 years by November next year. Okay, this is pretty much it from all the future tense forms. I hope you've understood all of the slides or all of the lecture topics. If you haven't, however, you only need to tell me which you haven't understood, and I will definitely clarify your confusions. Okay, so today we have just completed discussing all the tense forms or all the tenses that there are in English language and English grammars. We've discussed the present tense forms. We've discussed the past tense forms, and today we've just discussed the future tense forms. Okay, so that marks the end of the chapter on tenses. However, you will see me again, inshallah, on Monday. And on Monday, we will discuss conditionals and voices. On Monday, we will discuss conditionals and voices. And later today, inshallah, you will receive a quiz on the future tense forms. So I hope to see you all again on Monday. And until then, everyone, stay safe. Yeah? Allah Hafiz.